Single dad gives billionaire's disabled daughter a miracle. Mom breaks down in tears the night the miracle began. Rain pressed against the city like a held breath, and a billionaire mother sat alone in a hospital corridor, watching her empire crumble into silence. Machines hummed where laughter should have been. Fluorescent lights washed the world in pale mercy, and at the center of it all lay her daughter, a child whose small body had never obeyed the promises of wealth or power. For years the woman had bent the world to her will, bought answers, hired the best minds, flown across oceans chasing hope, only to return emptier each time. That night, as thunder rolled somewhere far away, she finally understood the most terrifying truth of all. Money could not teach a broken body how to rise, and love alone was not enough to make a miracle happen. Or so she believed, until a single father walked into her life carrying nothing but tired hands, a quiet faith, and a past shaped by loss. If you believe stories like this remind us that kindness and second chances still exist in this world, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so these stories can keep reaching hearts like yours. The single father's name barely mattered in a city that never noticed men like him. He lived on the edge of survival, balancing long shifts with longer nights, raising his son in a cramped apartment where love filled the spaces money could not. He had learned early that grief does not announce itself loudly. It arrives slowly, like dust settling on forgotten furniture. Years earlier, illness had taken his wife, leaving him to become both anchor and sail for a child who depended on him for everything. Responsibility hardened him, but it did not make him bitter. Instead, it carved patience into his bones. He worked wherever hands were needed, carried boxes, cleaned floors, fixed what others discarded. It was through one of those humble jobs that fate placed him near the billionaire's world, close enough to see suffering stripped of its luxury, raw and unmistakably human. The billionaire mother, known publicly for her ruthless intelligence and relentless ambition, had retreated from the spotlight since her daughter's condition worsened. Cameras no longer followed her, headlines softened into rumors, and boardrooms waited while she paced hospital hallways counting breaths. Her daughter's disability was not something that could be masked or managed with public relations. It was a daily battle against a body that refused cooperation, muscles that weakened, and moments that slipped away without warning. Each small setback felt like a personal failure. She blamed herself, questioned every decision, and carried guilt like a second spine. When the doctor spoke in careful tones and avoided certainty, she nodded politely while her heart shattered in private. What terrified her most was not the diagnosis itself, but the slow erosion of hope. The single dad entered this world quietly, almost invisibly. He was assigned to help maintain parts of the hospital, pushing carts through corridors heavy with antiseptic and sorrow. He saw the mother often, though she never noticed him at first. He noticed her exhaustion, the way she sat perfectly still for hours, as if movement might break something fragile inside her. He noticed the child, too, the daughter whose eyes followed the world with a sharp intelligence, trapped behind an uncooperative body. There was something in that gaze that reminded him of his own son on the nights when fear crept in and words failed. Without realizing it, he began timing his tasks so he would pass that room more often, not out of curiosity, but out of a quiet pull he could not explain. What the billionaire did not know was that the single father carried his own story of resilience. After his wife's passing, he had refused to let despair define their home. He learned exercises to help his son recover from a childhood injury that once threatened his mobility. With no access to expensive therapy, he relied on patience, consistency, and an almost stubborn belief that effort mattered. Every night he repeated small movements, encouraged progress measured in millimeters, celebrated victories invisible to outsiders. Over time, his son had grown stronger, not because of miracle treatments, but because someone refused to give up when progress was slow and uncertain. That experience reshaped the father's understanding of healing. He believed the body listened to perseverance in ways science could not always explain. The first real change began with something almost insignificant. While working near the child's room, the father noticed tension in her limbs, the same kind he had seen years before. Without speaking, without making promises, he adjusted the environment in small ways, ensuring quieter moments, softer light, better positioning. When the mother finally noticed him, it was not anger she felt, but confusion mixed with a strange sense of relief. He did not approach her with grand claims or ask for anything in return. He simply continued, day after day, offering help where allowed, applying knowledge earned through hardship rather than textbooks. The hospital staff watched cautiously, skeptical yet curious, while the mother, desperate and exhausted, allowed hope to flicker once more. Progress came slowly, so slowly it could have been mistaken for coincidence. The daughter's breathing steady during certain routines. Her muscles responded faintly to repeated care. Tiny movements appeared where there had been none. The mother oscillated between hope and terror, afraid to believe what she was seeing. Each improvement felt like standing on thin ice, beautiful and dangerous. The single dad never celebrated loudly. He treated each step forward as part of a long journey, reminding himself that setbacks were not failures but pauses. He carried this belief quietly, never asking for recognition, never explaining himself unless asked. His presence alone became a comfort, a reminder that someone believed effort still mattered. As weeks passed, the hospital room transformed from a place of mourning into one of fragile anticipation. The mother began to sit closer, to participate, to learn. She watched the man work with patience she had never seen in boardrooms or laboratories. It humbled her. She realized that in all her wealth, she had overlooked the simplest truth. Healing is not always bought. Sometimes it is built, moment, by people who refuse to stop trying. When the doctors acknowledged changes they could not fully explain, the mother's composure finally cracked. Years of controlled emotion gave way to tears she could no longer contain. They were not tears of despair, but of release, of gratitude tangled with guilt and awe. The miracle was not sudden, not cinematic in the way movies portray. It unfolded quietly, through accumulation rather than spectacle. One morning, the daughter responded to touch with intention. Another day, her eyes tracked movement with new clarity. Each sign felt like a whispered promise rather than a declaration. The mother began to understand that miracles do not always announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes they arrive disguised as persistence. She found herself breaking down not because her daughter was suddenly healed, but because she finally felt less alone. The single dad had given her something priceless, not by curing her child, but by reminding her that hope was still alive, even in its most fragile form. Just before we reach the end of this story, take a moment to comment below where you're watching from and what part of this journey moved you the most. Your words help build a community of hope around stories like this. As the daughter's condition stabilized and improved beyond expectations, the billionaire mother faced a reckoning within herself. Gratitude demanded action, but she struggled to find a way to repay something that felt beyond value. The single father never asked for money, recognition, or opportunity. His reward was seeing life push back against limitation, just as it had once done for his own child. When the mother finally allowed herself to truly see him, not as an employee or a helper, but as a man shaped by love and loss, she understood that miracles are often delivered by ordinary people who carry extraordinary endurance. In her tears, she recognized that her empire had been built on control, but this moment was built on trust. The story does not end with complete healing, because real life rarely offers such neat conclusions. The daughter continued her journey with challenges still ahead, but now with measurable strength and renewed possibility. The single dad returned to his life, his work, his son, carrying the quiet knowledge that kindness had rippled farther than he would ever fully see. The mother returned to the world changed, her priorities reordered, her heart permanently marked by a lesson no amount of money could have taught. And somewhere between hospital walls and rainy nights, a miracle had happened. Not because the impossible became easy, but because someone refused to walk away when it was hard. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can still change lives in ways power cannot, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may be waiting for their own quiet miracle.